Hi, I've been talking to you over the last couple of vlogs around some of the key principles that are really important to take into consideration when embarking on a redundancy planning process. First off, we talked about the importance of planning and preparing a business rationale that looks at the objective business reasons behind making redundancies or placing people at risk, and how to think about communicating that in an objective way towards the employees that may be affected by this. We then went on to talk about something called the pooling process. So the method that you would use to group together people that are perhaps doing a similar job or working within a similar location. So people that may be affected when there is a headcount reduction exercise that needs to take place. I wanted to talk to you for a couple of moments today about the next stage in the process, which is called the consultation process. And as far as employers are concerned, this is important regardless of the size of your organisation, regardless of how many employees you have. Now, if you have 20 or more employees, there are more statutory obligations in terms of conducting a collective consultation process over a longer period of time, over a 90-day period. However, for employers with less than 20 employees, it's simply good, sound practice to embark on a two-way, meaningful consultation period with any employees that you consider at risk of redundancy, even if it's just one or two people. And the reason this is important is that you can demonstrate that you have followed a due process as far as redundancies are concerned, and that you have that opportunity to have that two-way conversation with your employees and to understand that there are conversations to be had that are looking at alternatives to redundancy, and that redundancy is the last option, but that the two-way conversations have taken place to make sure that all options have been explored. So the first thing to do is to, once you've decided upon your pool of people that are at risk, is to embark on this redundancy consultation period. And if we're talking very small numbers, 2 weeks or so is probably apt, but we would need to talk to you to advise on an exact period. But that would be considered a reasonable time to embark on that two-way conversation. And the first thing is to be absolutely transparent with your employees about the reasons that you are having to consider making redundancies within your organisation. Use the data that you put into place when preparing your business rationale behind this. Talk about the data and the facts and the information that has led to this decision whereby you have to consider making headcount reductions. It would be good practice to talk about the number of people that are affected by redundancies within your organisation. Again, we're talking small numbers here. The methods of selection that you will be using, and I'll come on to that in a moment. The procedure that you will be following. So lay out what your consultation period looks like. So when will the next meeting be? What are the methods of contact in between? What are the expectations that you have of your employees whilst they are in a consultation period? This can be a very, very unsettling time for somebody within a consultation period, knowing their role is at risk of redundancy. And it's important for you to be as clear and as unambiguous as possible. Also, you may want to communicate the method that you will use for calculating redundancy payments. It may be that you're using a statutory calculator. It may be that you offer enhanced terms. You would need to look at your own policies and understand that, but it's good practice again to calculate that so that all of the information is out there. Your employee can leave the meeting either having asked questions and hopefully had some answers, or certainly feeling comfortable that they can go away but keep up that regular dialogue with you in terms of answering questions that they absolutely will have after the meeting. Now, just going back to the methods of selection, the next stage that you will go through is to apply a selection criteria. So to apply the information that you will use to make the decision as to which individuals will actually be made redundant. And I will talk to you in our next recording about how to do that and what factors to take into consideration so that you can create yourself a selection criteria to follow, which again enables an objective, a fair, a reasonable and also an auditable process for you in terms of following good practice and demonstrating that you have followed a reasonable and a meaningful consultation process. The risk of not doing that is that employers can be found liable for all manner of unfair dismissal situations. It doesn't matter that the intent is sound, that the redundancy is sound. Unfortunately, failure to follow a due process is something that can be easily tripped up over. So it's worth bearing this in mind. Again, if you'd like our help, please get in contact with me with the information on this link. We're more than happy to help. It might be the first time that you've had to speak to people to gain some advice in these areas, and that's absolutely fine. The next post will be around your selection criteria and how you go about making those decisions. Thank you. Bye-bye.